Coming up tonight, the two men who want to run the city of Detroit, Napoleon and Mike Duggan. It's the mayoral race everyone is talking about. You'll hear from both of them right now on MiWeek.
Michigan's turnaround is being powered by things we do better than anywhere else in the world. Today's global leaders routinely turn to Michigan to work on their most difficult problems. That's because the engineering talent in this part of the world is simply the best. So many possibilities lie ahead for Michigan's future. These opportunities are here and starting to happen. The vision for the new Michigan. Share it, talk it up, drive it home. Funding is also provided by Delta.
Hi there and welcome to MiWeek. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Christy McDonald. It's the most pivotal Detroit mayoral race in years. Who wins in November will have the task of leading a city out of bankruptcy, restoring government function, and helping make it a place that people feel safe and want to live. Even if you don't live in Detroit, what happens in the state's largest city impacts all of us in some way. So tonight, we're talking to both candidates, Napoleon and Mike Duggan, about their plans and why each should be the next mayor of the city of Detroit. Our contributors are here tonight, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of the Detroit Free Press, and we start first with candidate Napoleon, who is also the Wayne County Sheriff. Sheriff, thanks so much for joining us on MiWeek. We appreciate it.
Hi, Christy. How are you?
I'm well, but given all of the things I just listed off that the next mayor is going to have to tackle in the city of Detroit, why on earth do you want this job?
You know, the fact is that, we are facing difficult times. We need leadership that is experienced, that is strong, that is tough, that's unafraid to tackle the serious issues that we have in this community. I have lived here my entire life. I have had the experience of Detroiters. I understand what it's like to live in this community on some very difficult circumstances. You don't have to tell me about high insurance rates. I've paid them. You don't have to tell me about crime. I've been a victim. You don't have to tell me about vacant homes, one next door to me.
But
so I've had those
that you're qualified, though, to tackle the serious issues that the
Christy,
city's facing?
you didn't go there, did you? Am I qualified? I'm an attorney. I've studied organizational behavior at Northwestern, finance at Wharton, and leadership at Harvard. What would suggest that I'm not qualified?
I'm not suggesting you're not qualified, sir, but you're talking about just growing up and living in the city of Detroit first. And that's what I was asking, that just growing up and living there, is that saying that you're qualified to be there?
I mean, absolutely not. I have a law degree. I mean, I've done a lot of stuff, so to suggest that I'm not capable is really kind of... that's kind of demeaning.
Well, let's stay with that then, Benny. Your current job is sheriff.
Yes.
And you have to be running in part on that record.
Sure.
You've had cost overruns or in your department, we talked about it before. You've not met your budget, I don't think once.
Fantasy budget.
But let me finish.
That's fine.
And plus, we've got now this jail project in Wayne County that had $60, $70 million in cost overruns because of change orders. Talk first about the reason your budget's not balanced, and then whether or not you had any role at all in those change orders that led to the cost overruns.
The commission in the county executive for 40 years, not just under my leadership, but under my predecessor, he was over budget every year. Facano was over budget every year. Mr. Lucas was over budget every year because folks have engaged in fantasy budgeting for the sheriff's office for years. I have 2,800 prisoners under my control, and they budget me for 1,800. So, this is coming to a head because, quite frankly, there's only 3 ways you can get out of the county jail. You can serve your time, you can bond out, or you can be released by the chief judge of circuit court. Absent that 2,800 people that I have are my responsibility. I have to feed them, I have to clothe them, I have to transport them, I have to wash their clothes, I have to have a registry. All of those things we have to do, and quite frankly, until you tackle the elephant in the room, the tiger in the cage, which is the population of the jail, until you budget the jail for what we actually have as opposed to what you hope we have, we will continue to be over budget as every sheriff has been. Secondly, as you talk about the the new jail. The fact is there's an investigation by the federal government. There's also one by the Wayne County prosecutor, one-person grand jury impaneled. She has endorsed my candidacy for mayor of the city of Detroit. She understands very clearly that I had no significant role in building the jail, that no elected official builds a building in Wayne County. That is the responsibility of the Wayne County executive. I operate the jail. I don't build the jail. So all I agreed to do was to operate the jail, take the keys when the jail is built, and put them in the prisoners in there. So
specifically, did you have any input on the change orders?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Steve.
And that's really not the significant part of it. The issues as it relates to the jail was, from my perspective, is that they went out and didn't tell the truth from the beginning, because the project that they bonded was not the project that they ultimately needed to have financing for. And when the county went back to get the extra money, considering some other things that were going on in the county commissioner said, "We're not giving you that money." Things stopped.
Stephen.
Sheriff, I know you opposed the bankruptcy in Detroit, but I want to talk to you about what the bankruptcy will accomplish, which is to essentially restructure $18.5 billion in debt and liabilities. I want you to try to explain what you would have done, if not bankruptcy, to get rid of that debt.
Well, first and foremost, I'm not certain that $18 billion is an accurate figure. First and foremost.
Okay, so you disputing Kevin Orr's financial report?
I disagree that anything related to the water board or water department should be a part of that figure.
Okay.
Because that part of it is debt that you have a dedicated revenue stream to pay.
Sure.
Unless the
so that
Detroit,
gets you down to 12.
Unless the Detroit, no, I think it's a little bit more than that.
There's only $6 billion in the water department.
That's his figure. I would probably dispute that. But anyway, so if you take away that, the biggest part of that debt is going to be obviously legacy costs related to police and fire retirees and general city workers retirees. So I think that you could have done something a little more creative, kind of what they did in New York. I mean, you remember when New York was going through the same issue? Nobody thought that it would have been a good idea to let New York go under. Why couldn't we do something creative like what they did in New York and hopefully save the city, save retirees' pensions?
But here's what they did in New York. The state put a board of control over the city council and the mayor, and that's who made the financial decisions. Part of what you're opposing is that idea here, right?
No. What I oppose is someone coming in who is an emergency manager who is functioning as a king. I don't think that you would want anyone to move into your community, make financial decisions long-term regarding your tax dollars, who has no roots in this community, who is making decisions that my daughter and my grandson would probably...
But he's representing the governor, who's represented by, who's elected by the people of the state of Michigan.
Stephen.
The governor is not a king.
That? You really think it's okay for the governor to impose his will and negate the will of the people of the city of Detroit? You're sitting here telling me you would be okay with that.
What I'm saying is that the laws of the state of Michigan make the governor responsible for the finances of municipalities, which are creations of the state, not sovereigns.
I think that we have a court challenge that will determine whether or not the governor has the authority to do that.
All right, so as that plays out, Sheriff, and let's look forward a little bit, that if you are elected mayor and come January, I know that you don't want to have an emergency manager in the city of Detroit, but if you were in that position where you do have to work with Kevin Orr, how will you go about doing that?
If in fact Kevin Orr is determined to be here legally by the federal court, you can't work with Kevin Orr. Kevin Orr decides whether he wants to work with you. Let's call it like it is.
So how difficult a position then would the mayor be in if that's you?
Well, it's a difficult position for anybody. I mean, I could stand here and tell you that I'm going to come up with this great plan. I'm going to bring all these expert folks in and convince the governor that I have a great team in place that is going to turn this city around. But the fact is, unless the governor wants that to happen, unless Kevin Orr wants that to happen, it will not happen. I cannot believe that the governor would say, I've brought this person in, I've given him a task, and just because you're now elected mayor, I'm going to just scratch this person away, unless I was conspiring with him like my opponent was. I mean, he said yesterday that he got offered the job 2 years ago. Well, that's interesting, because the governor had only been elected, had only taken office that year. The governor took office in 2011 and wasn't even through his first year when my opponent says he got offered the job as emergency manager. I think that's inconsistent with what some folks have said under oath, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Penny,
bankruptcy court.
Listening to the first two debates, forums you've had with your opponent, you agree on an awful lot of things, but one thing that you seem to have starkly different positions on is what to do with the city assets. Your opponent says he wouldn't sell anything, wouldn't sell the DIAR. You said if it meant bolstering the police department, keeping pensions intact, you would sell that art. Would you sell the city's assets to deal with this situation, this debt? I
think that, first of all, no assets should be on the table. But if you're going to put the water department, if you're going to put Belle Isle, if you're going to put our parks on the table, why should we not put Picasso on the table? I don't think any of it should be there. But there should be no sacred cows, because the citizens of this, especially if the decision is going to be made by someone who is not a Detroiter, who has no vested interest, has no root or fruit in the city of Detroit like Kevin Orr, why should he be able to make that decision for the citizens of this community? I don't want the art sold, because art is important. I realize that communities are judged by all of the amenities that they have, and having a world-class art institute is very important to the growth of this community. But I can't say that if you give me a choice between a police officer and Picasso, that I'm going to take Picasso. I'm not going to say that. But if at the end of this hearing we're currently in, the bankruptcy judge says, no, you're not eligible for bankruptcy, would you sell the art and other assets to satisfy the debt? I don't know. We'd have to look and see if there are alternatives. We'd have to look to see if there's a more viable resolution to this, to the situation that we're in. You know, we have to look at all options if, in fact, we don't go into bankruptcy. I don't think, as I was going through my organizational behavior class, one thing that I learned very clearly, if you're going to only figure out one way to do something, it's probably not the best or the right way. So let's get at the table, let's be creative, yes, let's be intellectual and think through this process without being reactive and getting to the point where you're panicking because of the situation that you're in. So let's take a reasonable look at it, see what's in the best interest of the citizens of the city of Detroit, and then we move forward.
Let's talk really briefly as we're wrapping up here about public safety. Would you say that's the most important thing on Detroiters' minds, and then making sure that you're getting more people moving into the city by ensuring that there's safety when they're in the city?
The number one issue in this community is public safety. We've gone from 1.8 million people down to 700,000. If you did an exit interview of Detroiters who have left and stayed in the region, overwhelmingly they'll tell you they did it for a few issues: crime, the school system, taxes, and insurance. Until you fix that, you don't fix the city.
And do you have any major plans that once you become mayor that you would roll out?
Absolutely. I've announced my 1 square mile initiative that will put a police officer in every square mile of the city to focus on those quality of life issues that are destroying our neighborhoods. In fact, it was interesting to see that the new chief, I guess we can still call him new, has come out with his one sector issue, 1 police officer per sector. It's just a different terminology of what I've already proposed. He's obviously had a chance to look at it, and he knows it's going to work.
Well, Sheriff Benny Napoleon, we wish you the best in these last couple of weeks of campaigning, and we appreciate that you joined us here on MiWeek.
Oh, it's tough, but I'm glad to be here, Chris.
That's why we asked you
to have you.
Hey, Stephen, always a pleasure, man.
Joining us now in our Midtown studio is candidate for Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan. Mike, thanks so much for joining us for MiWeek. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
Let's talk about all the things that the next mayor is going to have to tackle here in the city of Detroit, given the problems with the finances. You're going to have to restructure city government if you win, talking about public safety, and also getting people to come and live in the city of Detroit. Why do you want this job?
Well, you know, I was born in this city, and I lived here as a boy. I went to high school here, and I've worked here every day for the last 32 years. And this is a great city that's fallen on some hard times. There are an awful lot of people who want to pitch in and help, and I felt like maybe with my background in dealing with some financial problems, maybe I could be helpful. So I got into the race.
Well, I know you said you grew up here in the city of Detroit, but you've only lived back in the city for the last year and a half. How does that qualify you to be mayor over someone who has lived here in the city for their entire life?
Yeah, I'm not sure most voters are saying that the qualifications to run a 10,000 employee organization and a $1 billion operation is first based on how long you've lived in a particular place. I think most voters are more concerned with what have you done than where did you live. And I'm not having any trouble being accepted as a Detroiter or any place I go. People know where my heart is.
Noah?
Yeah, Mike, you're on the campaign trail telling voters that you don't think we needed an emergency manager. Right. You don't think Detroit needed to go into bankruptcy. You don't think Detroit needs to sell assets. Don't think Detroit needs to touch its pensions or union contracts. There's an $18 billion debt and $100+ million annual operating deficit. Is it realistic to tell voters that you could fix all of that without those sorts of major disruptions? And if not those things, what do you do?
Well, that's the right question, but I do tell the other half, because whenever I talk about the things I'm not in favor of, people ask, what are you? But when you take out the water department debt, which I don't believe belongs in this conversation, you're talking about $12 billion.
Still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. $6 billion of that is retiree health care. That's half the problem. We have a retiree health care problem. We finance retiree health care. In fact, we haven't financed it, but we run up the bills in the most cost-expensive way imaginable. The retiree health care has to be dramatically restructured. I think Kevin Orr is on the right general direction with the use of the exchanges, but I believe we should be doing what GM and Ford and Chrysler did with UAW and sitting down and striking it together. But I think we have to dramatically bring down that retiree health care bill. We do have to reduce what we're paying to the bondholders, and Kevin Orr is heading in that direction. But I also think we need to do things like the McKinsey report suggests. Collect the $100 million in income tax revenue every year that we're missing from people who live in the city and work at businesses in the suburbs, because the suburban companies aren't deducting the Detroit tax, and Detroit's computers are so out of date that we don't know. And so I think if you took, I'm not saying there's not going to be pain, there will be pain. I just think you can get there without having to sell the art, without having to cancel the pensions, which are the vast majority of cases, a very small amount of money.
So you don't think we've reached that point where it's too late to manage our way out of this crisis?
If the judge were to find that we're not eligible for bankruptcy, again, I just know my own experience. I came into DMC when we were down to 15 days cash on hand and the bankruptcy lawyers had been hired, but I was able to bring the parties in and say, look, you got two choices. We can make a deal here, or we can go to bankruptcy where you're likely to get 9 cents on the dollar, and I was able to negotiate deals without having to do it. I would have liked the opportunity to try that in the city of Detroit.
You have a rather outsized view of this job and have said that you're not in favor of authorities that run departments, things being outsourced and stuff like that. But certainly we've seen in the last 20 years capital shift away from government in a significant way. People shift away from government in a significant way. And you see cities all over the country trying partnerships and outsourcing and authorities to manage services. Why do you think Detroit is different?
Yeah, I'm not against all authorities. When I was at Wayne County, I chaired the Wayne County Stadium Authority that built Ford Field and Comerica Park. I think authorities have a role, but there has been an attitude really under the Bing administration with the governor's support where you took the health department and put it in a private agency. And I don't believe the health services have improved at all. You took the job training services and put them in a private agency. And essentially, it seemed to me that Mayor Bing was saying, this is too complicated for me to handle, let's lay it off on somebody else.
But the outcomes with those job training services did get better.
In some cases they did, in some cases they didn't. On the health side, I don't think you can make a case that they got better. But you're making the point that in some cases an authority could make sense. It looks to me like we've been heading in the direction of wholesale fragmenting county government on the belief that the current administration can't run it. Well, strong management can run things well, and I think we ought to be making decisions for the long run saying, okay, what belongs in an authority and what belongs in the city administration, not given the lack of management now, how much stuff can we spin off? And I feel like that's the direction we've gone.
I want to talk about management a little bit. If you become mayor in January, you're going to have to work with Kevin Orr, even though you said you don't believe an emergency manager should be in the city of Detroit and that you would talk to the governor about putting a plan in place so you can actually take over that organization. But I think people are waiting to see how are you going to work with him if indeed the governor says, no, Mike, you're going to be the mayor and we've got an emergency manager.
Well, I'm interested to see that too. But however it is, I'm going to deal with him professionally. And so I don't see engaging in a bunch of protests and some of the other things. But I think, and of course it's come out in the last couple of months, the governor's administration did approach me first about being the emergency manager. I think the governor's argument about needing to go to an emergency manager because the mayor could not handle the responsibilities becomes far less legitimate if you elect a mayor with a strong turnaround history. But we're going to see. I don't know what's going to happen following the November election, but I expect we're going to work it out in a professional way.
Mayor Bing has said that he was not allowed to work with him, that he felt that he was kind of pushed to the side. Would you say, I'm not going to be pushed to the side, I would like to do actually even more?
I'm a hard person to push to the side. So I will come in with a very clear perspective. And I think is critical that I be allowed to bring in a cabinet. There are a whole lot of extremely qualified people in this town that
but
are
isn't
willing
that
to
going
come
to
with
set
me.
up a tremendous amount of conflict? Because Kevin Orr has a cabinet. He's got people running things. Do you really expect on January 1st that Kevin Orr is going to dismiss those people, or that the governor, you said at the Economic Club, you would take your plan to the governor and say, look, send Kevin Orr back to Washington, put me in charge. Is that realistic, Mike? And are you setting up for a confrontational environment in City Hall?
The people of this city are voting for me because they believe I can get the services turned around. And I certainly feel like I have an obligation to do that, and I expect to do that. Now, when you say dismiss people, you've got a whole bunch of short-term consultants running around doing things today, and I don't think doing them particularly effectively. Now, do I want to dismiss Chief Craig? No, I think he's doing a good job, and I think he deserves every chance to succeed. On the other hand, you look at a planning operation, which is essentially leaderless right now. You have no CFO in the city right now. You've got a number of departments, the bus department, they're contracting out, they're not contracting out. I don't believe you have a true cabinet, and I don't believe you can recruit a true cabinet for a guy who's going to be around 8 or 9 more months. I think the next mayor is the one that can recruit that cabinet.
Have you spoken to the governor? Has he given
I have
you
not.
any assurances?
I have not. Absolutely not. I'm hoping that we can deal with it professionally. I've had a professional relationship with the governor in the past. I had, I think, an effect on the Medicaid expansion and the conversations I had with him on that. Sometimes he goes along with me, sometimes he doesn't, but I expect to have a professional and respectful relationship.
What about that relationship with the state? Your opponent says you're friends with the governor and in cahoots for the emergency management and all these other things. You deny that kind of relationship, but what would the relationship be, do you think, between a Duggan administration and a Snyder administration? How would it be different?
I think it's going to be very professional and very respectful. And if you look, I had that relationship with DMC. DMC is heavily dependent on state funding, given the fact that 40% of our patients are on Medicaid. And I dealt with the governor and I dealt with his administration on a number of issues, and we were treated fairly. But I sat down with the governor and I laid spreadsheets in front of him, and I showed him, for example, that not just DMC, but Henry Ford and St. John's were doing an outstanding job of delivering care for the uninsured, and money should not be moved to out-of-state areas, and we convinced him on the merits. And so my relationship with the governor is professional. It's respectful. As you know from the emails that you saw, I lobbied him against appointing the emergency manager. His team listened to me politely, and then they ignored me. But in other cases, particularly a Medicaid expansion, they've listened to me and been effective.
But at the DMC, you weren't a Democratic politician with political ambitions. You are now running for mayor, and a lot of people thinking, well, what is this a stepping stone? Is this a stepping stone to the governor's office?
It would have been a whole lot easier to run directly for governor than do the 241 House parties. Mayor of Detroit is the last political office I will ever hold. This is what I want to do, and I want to lay my mark in turning the city around, and I'm going to govern as a mayor of Detroit, representing the 700,000 people here first, and I'm going to build relationships with both Republicans and Democrats in Lansing, not just the governor. I've got strong relationships with a lot of Republicans in the legislature, and I'll maintain those as well.
I want to talk a little bit about some of your plans if you are elected. We've talked a lot about getting businesses to come to the city of Detroit and to move their businesses downtown. What about getting people to live back in the city of Detroit? What is your plan in trying to attract people and trying to attract that middle-class tax base back into Detroit?
Well, we got a whole lot of people moving into Midtown and downtown on the riverfront today. Our problem is they're moving out of the neighborhoods a lot faster than they're moving into the central city. And so the key is going to be to stop the population decline in the neighborhoods. And if you go on my webpage, DugganForDetroit.com, my whole campaign has been about every neighborhood has a future, how we take the abandoned houses when they're first abandoned, we move families in. This demolition strategy that we are still on is senseless. We're knocking down beautiful, solid brick buildings without giving any thought to reusing them. but it also means the police have to show up on a timely basis. It means we need to crack down on the people who are dumping trash in neighborhoods. And I've got, I think, a very detailed plan, which I've been holding forums where I do an hour PowerPoint showing what that plan is, and I'm confident it will slow the exodus from the neighborhood.
Are you satisfied with public safety right now and the direction it's heading in?
Well, the direction, I think it's heading in the right direction, more slowly than it needs to. But I think Chief Craig has turned it in the right direction. I'm a pretty impatient person. I don't think we've cut the police response time nearly as quickly as we need to. I think our response to the bus drivers was much too slow. But when I get there, we'll pick up the pace of change.
All right, last quick question, Nolan.
Yeah, Mike, you come out of the Wayne County political machine. This city just went through a very rocky period in terms of a mayor who was a machine politician. Should the voters have any concern about those days returning under a boss Mike?
No, you know, it was a different generation. It was actually a different set of laws. Up until 1995, the laws of this state said that people in public offices, your staff and your computers could be used for any kind of a campaign. It was a legitimate public purpose, a precedent that Brooks Patterson established when he was prosecutor. The law changed in 95, and we're in a different era. And I will follow the law, and I will follow the expectations that you have today.
And that'll do it for us. We'd like to thank Mike Duggan for joining us, and that's going to do it for My Week. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Michigan's turnaround is being powered by things we do better than anywhere else in the world. Today's global leaders routinely turn to Michigan to work on their most difficult problems. That's because the engineering talent in this part of the world is simply the best. So many possibilities lie ahead for Michigan's future. These opportunities are here and starting to happen. The vision for the new Michigan. Share it, talk it up, drive it home. Funding is also provided by Delta.